Doing nothing leads to the very best something. It's a quote from Christopher Robin that Winnie the Pooh often says, and boy, is it more true today than ever. In our world, we're constantly going a million miles an hour, and there's no room for margin, there's no room for time, there's no room to just be. And a quote like that really challenges what margin looks like in today's world. We think that the more that we do, the more that we accomplish. We fail to realize that often a lot of things that we do never really turn into any tangible results that we think they are because we forget them or we move past them so quickly, or just becomes another thing. I think a really easy example of this is the podcast scene. Now, I think podcasts are great, and it's awesome to have the convenience of listening to information at our fingertips. But a lot of times it's easy to just constantly be listening to something. And when you take a step back and evaluate what you remember or what you've actually soaked in, you come to the conclusion that it's honestly very little for the amount of time that you've listened and you've constantly been consuming your mind, especially, when driving into work or doing something else. And I don't think it's bad to do those things, but to be doing it all the time when there's already so much stimulation going on in our world around us, it can quickly become too much. And so there's this, it's almost like a temptation. We think that just because we're doing something, we're getting something out of it. And oftentimes I think we're constantly seeking that stimulation, and myself included on this. One of the things I think I've been challenging myself with is even just driving to work sometimes is either trying to not have the music playing or podcast playing. If I do want to have some music, maybe it's like instrumental or some kind of grounding music. But something that helps me in the time of margin rather than asking something of me. Because really when we're constantly listening to those things, I think we're constantly asking something of ourselves. And it's no wonder why we're exhausted. It's just a small example, but other things I have on there is like when we're eating, there's a temptation to go on our phones or to be using that. And oftentimes it can act as a pacifier. It's like we're constantly needing to feel like we're doing something productive for the sake of being satisfied, just like a baby with a pacifier needs something to stimulate them. That's oftentimes how we act, unfortunately. And I think other things like doing the dishes and doing chores, I don't think it's wrong to listen to a podcast, but when you're constantly doing things all day and then you jump into it and you don't even really think about it, you're just kind of craving that, it's definitely a sign that you need more margin. And yeah, I think it's a big challenging indicator. So when I drew this for the thumbnail, I don't literally mean nothing. I don't think Winnie the Pooh literally means nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with nothing, especially today. I think we're terrified of that word nothing, what that indicates. But oftentimes I think it's just saying being present and just being. It's an art that is completely lost today. It's not okay to just be. You wait in a line and everyone's on their phones or has ear pods in or listening to things. I specifically remember times where I've had conversations with people at, restaurants or whatever places what we've been in queue at the airport, waiting in line to go on a plane. I can specifically remember conversations with people because they were impactful, and it was just being present in the moment and then having a conversation. And unfortunately, we're kind of fearful of that. I think a lot of people are fearful of that today, but man, is it more needed than ever. So I had a hiking analogy that I wanted to talk about, and for anyone that's been on a hike, maybe a long all-day hike, that it's a long journey. It takes a lot of time, and it can kind of consumes you. Like your whole day, you kind of become the hike in a sense, and time can fly very quickly in some parts and slow in other parts, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm talking about like an 8 to 10 hour hike. You could try to go through that hike as fast as possible, right? You could just try to get to the top of the mountain and then back down and not really go along and have any breaks or margin during that time. Some people do that. Maybe it's a workout or just another mountain that they're checking off the list that they're going through. But man, how much more enjoyable is the hike experience when you're going and you give yourself time to rest, and even more so if you're with other people, right? But you go a little bit, you take some time, you rest, you take in where you're at, you look around, and not even necessarily like you're taking pictures of everything. You're just present and you just be. That's awesome, and you get to do that multiple times throughout the hike as you make your way up there. You have snacks every once in a while. You're just kind of being present in the moment. I think that's what, at least for me, I'm missing a lot of that in life, and it's easy to go through it and fill those times. Or I'm gonna rest my body, and then boom, like you're gonna go on your phone or gonna be listening to something or something, instead of just being present. And I think that's for me. I think that's a good analogy of kind of how it can be sometimes, just trying to get to the thing instead of realizing that the thing is the process. Like it's literally called a hike. Like the journey, the hike, the activity in between is the thing, not the top. It's not called mountain peaking, right? And I think that's what is terrifying. Is oftentimes we're going through our days, and there is that thing, and it might not be like the end of the day, right? It's not the end of the day is the goal. Sometimes it's you're going through life and it's hard, and it could be. But oftentimes there's, you're trying to get that car, or you're trying to pursue that job, or trying to be better in some way. And these things aren't bad goals, but when they become the end in of themselves, you miss the point. You can aim for those things on your journey and still enjoy the journey without fully dedicating yourself solely to that. And I think that's one thing I'm trying to learn more of, is being sustainable in this culture and not taking it to heart, whatever the end goal is. That's not the ultimate thing. And so, I bring this challenge of creating margin, giving yourself just time to be, and having to be really intentional with that, taking a step back. It's hard because you don't realize how much or how easy it is to just cling to the next thing or get into the next thing until you really do it. And it's amazing how much self-serving it can be, like how much compassion you can care for yourself by just creating a little margin. And obviously it looks different for everyone, right? If you're single or if you have a family, maybe the margin's just when you get home, you're being present with your kids and you're not worried about whatever the next thing is. You get home, you're trying to be present for that time between then and when dinner happens, or something like that. Or maybe you're driving your kid home from practice and you're just being present with them. Whatever it is, I think there can be little things that you do in the margin. It doesn't necessarily need to be nothing, like I said, but man, what an opportunity to just be present and allow ourselves to just soak in where we're at. And then it helps us when we do go to those next tasks. When you come home and you're present at home, or you go to work, your mind's not activated. It's not doing a million things. You're fully there and you're able to be. And I think that's really good. So that's something I'm trying to practice more. I just wanted to share. Hopefully it's helpful for you guys. Take care.